Hi everyone, Amber here. I've been gone for a while, but I'm back and I've got an art video and a journal video. I'm not sure which order you're gonna see them in or which order I'm gonna release them in. This is the journal video. So maybe the other one's already come out, maybe it hasn't, who's to say. But what I am gonna say is that I think this is gonna be a lot of fun. So part of the reason I have not been around on YouTube is because I have been working to set up a flea market booth. It was very spur of the moment, impromptu, serendipitous kind of stuff. It wasn't something I was planning to do, but along with that flea market booth, which is junk journal focused, art and journal focused, I'm going to teach some classes, starting with a junk journal class. I am using this opportunity to go through and demonstrate the project we're going to make in our first class. Now, a couple of reasons. One, it's just a good project. So I want to share it with, my folks on YouTube, as well as people who can be here in person in Central Arkansas with me to do the class. The other reason is because it's possible that someone who does attend the class has forgotten a step and wants to, be able to watch a video showing that process again. Or perhaps they, someone purchased a kit, because that's part of the process is I sell a kit at the flea market, and then they join it or they buy it and join the class. But let's say someone buys a kit, expects to join the class, something comes up and they have to miss. Again, just nice to be able to share what we're going to be doing so that people can go back and see it later. I have some beautiful papers in front of me. These are all from Collage Soup. I've recently become obsessed with Collage Soup. They make a variety of paperback and ebook collage paperbacks. So it's just papers that you can use in paper crafting of various kinds. This one is, I think everything I've got here is from the Botanica Obscura book, which I love. And it's different than the papers we're using in the class I'm teaching. Those are all going to be 12 by 12 scrapbook papers. But the thing that's really nice about this particular junk journal is that the process is the same, even when the paper you use is different. So size only really matters in terms of the size of the book you want or are going to get, based on the size of the paper you use, and likewise the size of the tabs. So I've got a lot of stuff cut out and prepped. Let me show you. I think I've got an example of the book we're good. Yep. This is one of the first junk journals I ever made. And it's really approachable for newbies. And a big part of what I tried to do with this first class, I don't know what kind of tools and experience people have. So I wanted something that would be really accessible to people of any, experience and ability. I didn't want people to have a lot of tools already. I told them to bring scissors. I am furnishing glue. Those of you who do a lot of art, collage, journaling know that the quality and type of glue matters quite a bit in the success of a project. So I didn't want people bringing stuff that would cause them to struggle. So I'm providing the glue in this first project. They are bringing scissors, and I prepped all of the journal components, where things like scoring, or inking or other things like that would be required, just so that they have a leg up and we can spend a lot of our time focusing on the process for making the journal, and they'll be able to walk away from the class with a completed journal. And yeah, it's going to be like this. This one I have ties on two sides. The example I put up for people alongside the kits has ties on just the back here. So there's a bunch of different ways that you can choose to close this. And it is essentially a double-sided journal. So this side is, you know, your journal pages. This really is one of the first ones I ever made, and I love it. I honestly do. It's not really the style I do a lot of all that often, with the super bright colors and sort of pop aesthetic, but it just all works really well together. And so that's the journal pages. But the other side of the journal, there we go. All pockets. So you can put various types of ephemera, and that way too, I don't imagine that anybody will be able to finish decorating their journal in class, but I'm bringing a bunch of goodies with me, extra bits of ephemera and things that I'm prepping and cutting out, and that way they can pick what they want rather than me making a lot of assumptions and stuffing the kits. So they can pick things that they want to continue to work with once they leave the class. They can put them in their little pockets. This is also great just as ephemera storage or as a good example journal. I know a lot of people keep an ideas journal where they save examples of things. I have one. I'm very bad at remembering to put anything in it, but I made this guy quite a while ago, and I've been trying to get better about putting examples of things inside. But the type of journal we're making with those pockets, I think, is also a really good one as an example or ideas journal. And you can riff on what I'm gonna show you here even today. I am using 6 pieces of paper. You can use more or less. I have done some of the work in advance to save you from having to watch me ink and fold a bunch of pieces of paper. I set one aside to demonstrate and prepped these. So these are our pages. And these are 8.5 by 11 US letter size pages that I printed out at home from that ebook. So that if you want a journal this size, or if that's the type of paper you have, then that's what you can expect. Again, the class I'm teaching is using scrapbook paper. I made this little tag and set it with this stuff because I thought it might work in the book. So that's just a cute little book page tag. And then I have a bunch of ephemera I'd been cutting out that I can use to start decorating. I don't know how much decorating I will do in the video. Those of you who've been watching me for a little while know I am not really good at finishing any sort of big project all the way through at once. I tend to bounce from thing to thing. That's just what works for me in my creative process. So I will definitely construct the journal today and make sure we've got our cover and stuff, and we might play around a little bit with decoration, but I don't anticipate having it completely finished. And these are just some more pages from that Botanica Obscura ebook that I printed to be able to use for ephemera. So 6 pages. Again, these are 8.5 by 11 US letter size to create our pages for the journal. 11 little paper hinges. These are also from Botanica Obscura. There was a page of just strips. I'm actually trying to grab one because I know I have more. There was a page of strips that you could cut out. The tabs, I think 2 inches is a pretty good size. The strips in the ebook varied a little bit in size. So this one is, looks like 1.5 inches. These ones are what 1 3/4. So that's good enough. My recommendation for the group is 2 inches wide. And then they should be in length shorter than your page's edge is going to be. So here, let me show you how I did that. I have the measurements written down for myself on the scrapbook paper ones that we were making, but not, of course, on this one alternative. So I have to remind myself what I did. But this is 4 inches. That's what I thought. So the 8.5 inch side here, I'm going to fold the long edges in and make it so that the 8.5 inch side is 4 inches after the folds, which means that the other 4.5 inches are going to be the calculations for how I score. And I apologize, I don't feel like I'm explaining it very well. I'm just gonna demonstrate it. Sometimes I don't always have my words, but this is my scoreboard. So this is another tool that I don't necessarily expect everybody to have, and you may not have, and that's also okay. You can just measure, mark, and fold where you mark. That's just fine. But you could see this is 8.5 inches wide, and we're gonna make it 4 inches in the center with a flap on either side so that they overlap each other. So that means that the center part is 4 inches, the overlapping flaps will measure a total of 4.5 inches. If I split that in half, that is 2.25 inches each side. So I'm gonna come in here and find my 1/4 inch measure and score on down, flip it around and repeat on this side. Again, 2.25 inches. And that's where I'm gonna fold lengthwise. I'm also gonna fold in half. And since this is 11 inches tall, no, my brain, you know what, this is where we are today. That's where my brain is today. This is, folding in half is very easy. I don't need to score. I don't need to score. I don't need to score. I don't need a math. Fold in half. I had caffeine. I was really hoping that it was gonna help me be, you know, all the way alive feeling. So far, it has not kicked in thus. Okay, so now we have our folds, which hopefully you can see. So this is 2.25. I'm gonna fold that along the scored line. Just checking to make sure that I haven't mucked anything up and that everything lines up straight and even. I find that no matter how much I try, sometimes it's just not 100.0% lined up, and that's okay. This is rather forgiving, as much as I like things to be nice and 100% perfectly lined up. So 2.5 inches in on that side, 2.5 inches in on this side. That means They're gonna overlap each other, or not 2.5 inches, 2¼ inches on each side, 4.5 inches total. And then look at that, 4 inches. I don't know if that part of the board is perfectly in shot. Let's see, 4 inches wide, and the 4.5 overlap. Fold it in half this way, which is, yes, 5.5 inches. And that's our final page. So I printed out 3 different papers and 2 of each of those papers. So we have one that looks like this, one that looks like this, and one that looks like this. And I did ink, so I am going to go through and ink this last one really quickly. I hope those measurements and instructions made sense. You know, if they don't, I can always post an update when maybe I'm feeling a little bit more with it, if such a day ever truly comes to me. The chronic yawning is hopefully over. I do have sleep apnea. I have been using a CPAP machine. It does seem to be making a difference in terms of the quality of sleep and limiting of side effects like from not sleeping, like just randomly yawning all day in the middle of the day while recording a video. It just felt wrong. It felt like, you know, people are gonna think I'm bored by my own video. I'm not. I just wasn't, you know, sleeping, really. Ooh. Okay. I'm inking with Stormy Sky Distress ink. When I first started doing more paper crafting and journal making, I went on eBay and found a lot of where someone was selling their used Distress inks collection, inks and oxides, and picked that up to start my own collection. That does, of course, mean I'm at the mercy of their color choices, which for the most part were ones I like. There are a couple colors that I don't or didn't really use. A few of them I sort of smooshed up and used at some point to dye like scraps and stuff, paper scraps and stuff, so I could use them up, because I like every color of the rainbow depending on the circumstances of use. But yeah, the Stormy Sky was one that I'm not sure I necessarily would have chosen, but I do really like. And I think it's absolutely perfect for these papers. So now, let me see. I'd like to fold this up. All right. I actually like the idea of having them. Oh, no one's gonna see that anyway. I always forget, you really won't see the inside portion here. You kind of can like try to peek, but you really won't. It's gonna be the front and the back here, and those are the same all the way through. So, two. Those are my 6 pages. They are all folded and inked. In addition to the 6 pages, again, 11 of these 2-ish inch strips. And the reason I like 2 inches is just so that you have enough overlap, because these are going to be essentially how you connect your pages to each other. And if you have really thin strips, it can get very fiddly folding and attaching, and I find the wider strips to be easier to work with. I like for them, I think whenever I first saw this done, it was done so that the strips were not the full height of the page, because this is essentially our inside page here. And I find that that does make it easier to, I think, open those pockets. If they went flush side to side, I don't think you'd be able to open and manipulate those pockets as easily. You could certainly try it. I may be wrong. I haven't bothered to explore. So again, this is 4 inches tall, this page. And my strips are, looks like, sorry for my head, 3 1/4, yep, inches tall. And so that gives me, what, 3/4 of an inch left, divided by top and bottom. So you want 11 of those. I rounded the corners on mine. You certainly do not have to. I just like the look of it. And then you're also going to want some covers. So I printed these on a fairly heavyweight copy paper. I think it's 28 pound. So it's a little sturdier than your typical copy paper. And this is presentation paper, which is very similar to photo paper, just because the colors and prints come out more vibrantly on that kind of paper. These images are what I'm going to use for my covers. And these are printed on presentation paper, but it's a thicker weight. I think it's like maybe 60-ish pounds. I could go up even higher, and indeed I thought about it, because you will notice that it is not as wide as my pages. I could have cut the pages shorter. I didn't want to. Instead, I'm probably going to use some trim or lace. I always have to put these in my little drawers, because otherwise the cat will be very excited to play with them if I just set them out on my desk until it's time to film. So I'm just going to do that. I don't mind when pages overhang their covers, especially, again, if that gives you an opportunity to use something fun on your cover edges. So 6 pages, 11 short strips, a front and a back cover, and the biggest decision you really need to make at this point is one of these 6 papers you're going to cut in half and use to attach your covers. So they're still technically pages, but they are going to glue flat to your cover. So what do you want essentially your first inside pages to be? And since I picked this one up, and I honestly don't have a strong preference, I'm gonna use this one. Normally I would cut with scissors, but today I actually think it might be smarter, especially since the papers are so dark, it's not as easy to see the cut line. There we go. So I'm literally just taking one of those folded pages and cutting it all the way in half. Ta-da! All right. Gonna go ahead and put a little bit more ink. Sorry. Where I just cut that. I used to be not klutzy. I don't really know what word I'm looking for there, but I didn't used to just throw things willy-nilly like I do now. So I apologize. There will be occasional clangs, bangs, and clacks when you watch me because of it. All right. I think I like that as my front inside cover and that as my back inside cover. Now we're going to glue our pages. And for this one, I'm gonna glue the entire inside. So let me grab this is just a catalog I use as a little glue book so that, there's my glue stick. So that I don't get glue everywhere and I can really push it up to the edges of whatever I'm gluing and not worry. I feel like it's a little bit misleading because I know people also make things they call glue books that are literally just journals that they glue things into and onto. That is not this. This is just junk mail that I am using to protect my work surface and prevent excessive stickiness while also allowing me to glue right along the edge of things, and in fact over that edge just a smidge. So there. So I'm going to glue that, and I needed to put glue on there on that flap and I did not. I was going to record this video yesterday. My allergies have been really bad. That's why I think I've been so tired. Allergies tend to really knock me out, and they've been especially bad. I think ragweed season where we are has probably already started up. I need to actually check the pollen count. That would certainly explain what I'm experiencing. So yesterday I was like, no, I'm really feeling I'm feeling too tired today. Tomorrow will definitely be better. I'll just do it tomorrow, and it's not better, but I really want to make sure that I get this video made, largely because I haven't made one in a very long time, so I'm long overdue, but also because I'm already thinking ahead to upcoming classes, and I want to be able to give my September class, for example, as much attention as possible, so that I get those kits put together in plenty of time. And managing to stick stuff in the glue. I really am not my best self today in terms of this, and that's okay. I am here to prove that you can make a journal even when you are not your best self and feeling 100%. And in fact, journal making is often the arty creative thing I spend time on when I don't feel my best. So, all right. So these are the pages that we cut in half. Well, the page that we cut in half into 2 pages. And I glued them completely shut so that we get some good sturdiness there. But the other ones, we're just going to glue along the flap because inside these will be our pockets. And I do not need my gluey catalog for this. So I'm just going to grab some glue. This is a Nuvo glue bottle that came with my glue press. But it's actually barely art glue. So if you're curious, that is the glue I'm using in this one. I will tell you the biggest problem I have with Nuvo glue. I actually really like it. But they sell the refill glue is essentially just a larger size bottle, and this bottle is very difficult for me to squeeze. I have hand pain and hand like challenges, and I can't easily squeeze it out of these bottles. But the Barely Arts is a little bit more fluid in terms of its viscosity, and it's just easier to pour. And so I ended up going with that when it was refill time. I really thought I did this wrong for a second and closed the wrong flap over top, but we're solid, we're good. So glue that flap. And just running the glue down. This is a small tip. It is not the most, it's not the smallest precision tip, which I often use for things like pockets and itty bitty ephemera, but this one works perfectly. So 2. Hopefully my allergies won't be too terrible when we have our class. Although class is mid-August, so they probably will be. 3. But I'm sure people will muddle along with me just fine. It's so funny, even though I know that these inside pages are not really visible. You can tell that there is something printed on them, but you wouldn't really be able to see the image. I still have this tendency to want to choose which side of the flap goes over which other side, and it's funny to me that that it feels like that matters, because I know it doesn't. No one is really going to notice, but I think my just urge for things to be symmetrical, you know, takes precedence over the logic. There we go. Got a little glue. All right, that should be, yep, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, I'm gonna cap this briefly. I try to be really good about putting lids on things when they're not actively in use, so that I don't have problems with extreme clogging down the road. The other thing that you need to do now that we've glued our flaps, is decide what order you want your pages in, because we're just about to bind this, which I know probably, like, we're already at that stage. Can you believe it? So because I have 2 of each of these pages and only 1 of this, I'm going to put that one in the center. Again, sense of, you know, symmetry and whatnot. I'm gonna do, yep. All right, so this one, that one, and that, and that. And then that's gonna be the back inside and the front inside. Likewise, let me take a quick look at our little tabbies here and see if there's anything I want to consider in terms of what order they show in. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. It really didn't look like 11 to me. Honestly, they're all different, so I don't really think it matters a great deal. I think I'm just gonna pick them up from the pile and go. There we go. So we will glue our front cover to this, where the overlap is. So let's pretend that's the front cover. I haven't made my final cover decision yet. Then it will open like that from this page here, which means I will be connecting that first page like so. So cover, open, that's what you see. That's my first page. So I'm going to take my very first little paper strip. It's a little fiddly to fold, but I find it still easier than getting the scoreboard out to try and measure and score and then fold. It's about, I find it equally fiddly, but one of them is more work than the other. And so what we're going to do here is we're going to glue one side of the inside of this strip into this opening, and the other side over top that, so then when we glue on our cover, it will cover over the little strip. And it will connect these pages to each other. Whew. All right. Again, this is one of those things that I think is easier to demonstrate than explain in words, especially for me these days. So I am just lightly running glue over the tab. You could use a glue stick for this. I do find glue stick tends to grab just a little bit faster and thus not leave a lot of wiggle room when you're positioning, because I'm just eyeballing, to be really honest here. You could mark so that you get it exactly in the center. I'm eyeballing getting that strip approximately in the center of this first pocket, because these are going to be our pockets. And yes, I could have printed something on the other side of this if I wanted the inside or the interior of the pocket to be extra pretty, or I could stencil or something inside. I declined to do that, but you certainly can. It's just an extra step so that when you look inside your pocket, you see even more beauty. All right, so tab number 1. And again, that is going to, I want it to open like that. That is going to get glued to this side, which will then get covered up by our cover piece. So lightly putting glue all over here. This, I will say, is the easiest. The front and back covers are the easiest ones to glue the tabs to. And you'll just notice I'll start to fiddle a little bit more once I start gluing the other pages together. And that's ultimately just because sticking the ends of those little tabs in like that can be fiddly. That's my word of the day today. Just for my sanity and keeping things together and very clear, I'm just going to paper clip that cover so we remember that is the cover, and our book is opening as books do, this way. Yes, you will see some of that, and do be careful not to glue. I have done it before. Get your glue up top so that it makes a big mess. Ooh, I took some of the ink off. I forgot. Inkjet ink will do that. But anyway, it's okay. I just don't want there to be glue on this little exposed bit and then that ends up gluing something it shouldn't. So I'm actually gonna open this up for a second. I tend to cover this over. I like to leave a little bit of that gap so that, again, there's just a little bit of space. And then I will either put ink over it, or paint, or washi tape, or tissue paper, or ephemera, or who knows. But it's a really easy little space to cover up when you do this in your journal. So here's my next tab. And we'll go ahead and repeat the process. And I really should be careful about how deep into that crease I get my glue. You would think, but am I? No. I'm going to pay for it. Now, you're going to glue the inside of the pocket of this page to the inside bottom pocket of this page. Okay, so we'll do the first side of it first. Again, just trying to get that lined up along with the other tab even. And get that burnished down. I'm being paranoid today, but I just really am worried. No, it's dry enough. I just don't want that glue to catch over there. So we have it on the inside of the top, or the first page, to the inside of the second page. So we'll add our glue. Let's try not to get it all the way to the crease this time. Haha, I did it. Or I'm doing it. Go me. And sometimes, like, yeah, if you give it a little squeeze on each edge, it opens up its little mouth, and that makes it a bit easier to push and fold that in. Because again, that's where it does get a little bit fiddly when you start going pocket to pocket. But in the end, it always works out. So cover, inside cover, first page, second page. And now we're going to glue these two pages together. So we'll take our next little paper strip hinge thing. I love demonstrating what I do. I'm not always sure that I'm the best at straight up tutorials. And I think that has a lot to do with just the way I work and my general sense of winging it, and mixed with a little bit of impatience. Just seems to be how I roll. And then remember that this is the part with the flap, which means it's going to go along the back cover, which means that the non-flappy part is going to go inside. And this one's not a pocket, it's just a fold over, so I'm going to line it up with the back page, put my glue down, and fold it over like that. And then again, you'd put your back cover on, and there's our little book. Page, page, page. Okay, let me get this little, I always get this little bit of glue when I do that kind of glue spreading that ends up collecting along the nozzle. Let me rub that, get that off my finger. Sorry, get out. I keep a baby wipe in a little empty jar that I have, so when I'm not using it, it doesn't dry out, and then I get a lot more use out of it. All right. I do think I want this to be the cover image and the other one to be the back image, so that works out nicely. And I have to decide a couple of things before we attach our cover. So the first thing is what we want to go on the edge to, you know, kind of cover the fact that this cover is a little short. And I could use this fringe. So it'll be like that, essentially, which I had enjoyed. Or I have this blue, sort of multicolored lace. It's got some like gold in it and even a little bit of pink. And so I think the colors do go relatively well with this journal. So that would look like that. Actually really liking that right now. And it'd be nice, I could sew it, stitch that on. You could glue, obviously. You could make page edgers. You could, these are literally, this was another page in Botanica Obscura. It was a four image page. And so I knew it was going to be a little too short, but I liked the size, the scale of it for this. And then I also have this hot pink here. Which I also like. And I could put the cover flush here so that the part with the lace is actually at the back instead of the front. I could do both. You know, have this little guy here, that little guy there. But the other thing is how we want to insert any ties. So the one that I made as my example for the course, I had, it's a taller page. So I had 2 ties to keep those pockets fully closed up so that, you know, your stuff inside of them doesn't fall out at any point. This one I think would do just fine with 1 tie. And I kind of like the idea of using this hot pink as our tie for the back. What I would do is cut this in half and attach it on the inside of the cover on each side so that I could then tie them and have plenty of length with which to do so. And so it would tie up like that with that little bit underneath the final cover. And again, remove, oop, 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 let go. Right, so could do it like that. And put more lace there. so that that is flush up there. Or I think I like that. It's funny, I was sure I was going to use this fringe, but it's not calling to me today. Let's get that back out of the way of any cat that might come by. I also have scraps from a different project, some of which would coordinate. So I did have a moment of, no, this I'm gonna keep out because I think I might use it for decoration. Okay, all right, I have decided what I'm going to do, and I tend to prefer to make a decision and commit to it and move on. I don't like to waffle. That's actually more waffling than I normally do, and I didn't enjoy it. And I think that's part of the reason too that I don't like to work on projects like start to finish all at once in a straight line, because I do want that ability to sort of hit a place where I'm not decisive, and rather than feeling rushed to get something done or force myself to make a decision when I am not in a decisive space on that project, I really just would rather, you know, give it time and come back to it later. All right. I believe my Barely Arts glue would handle this just fine, but most of the time when I'm using fabric-y stuff, I use Fabri-Tac, even though it is a big muckety messy mess to use. It really does the job, and I am always confident that it will do the job. So I am going to put that bit of lace there. And then on this one, am I gonna stitch it or am I gonna glue it? Or am I gonna both? I think I'm gonna stitch it. But I don't wanna. But I don't think I'll be able to get the glue on there in a very neat and tidy fashion. So I'm just gonna bite the bullet and make myself do it. So I'll need 2 strips of this, one for the front cover and one for the back cover. And I'm cutting them a little long. I'd rather they be a little long and I can trim them when I'm done. I'm not gonna pause the video per se. I'm gonna edit out the part where I turn and spend time sewing. All right, I'm back. And we have our covers. Just gonna trim the lace off the edges here. Most of the time I will put something like lace or trim on, I'll put it on with glue first in an area and then go back through later with stitching once things are dry. But this just, there's so much open space where I needed to attach it that just really didn't feel like it would work. So instead I held the lace in place with paper clips instead of pins, and sewed it down. And again, you don't have to do this. There are a lot of people who don't like to put any sewing in their journals. There are a lot of people who do. I think both are great. I think it depends on what you have available to you and what you enjoy. I have a sewing machine and I do like to sew, so this is a good option for me. And the Fabri-Tac there is dry on that side. So now I will put it here on this side. to attach my other little lace tie. Here we go. Sort of gently pat that down, try not to get too much glue on my hand. That's the front. We'll do that as our cover, which is nice. I hadn't really thought about it before, but the seam is the visible part there, and it will now be covered by the lace really nicely, I think. So looks good. And I can go ahead, I don't have to wait for that glue to dry for me to glue this on. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that now. I'm gonna start with glue stick so that I get a pretty even coverage on the inside, and then I'm gonna go around it with liquid. Sometimes I will do this all with liquid glue, but I feel like the paper, I usually try not to use too much liquid glue on paper that is thinner, because that is where you will get the wrinkling and the warping. And this paper is kind of like still right in the middle for me, so I wouldn't only use glue stick, I will tell you that, but it is nice to have the extra strength of the liquid glue, but with the uniformity of coverage that you do get with a glue stick. And now, if you haven't heard this tip before, people do recommend, you know, give it just a hair, just a second before you really press on your glue, and that will help limit any, you know, splodging. I'm gonna line you up as best I can from the outside, but it is a little bit taller than the page, which I didn't realize when I added my liquid glue. And now I am kind of kicking myself, and I don't like the way it's going on. So I'm gonna pull it back off if I still can. Yep, okay. Fixable. Doesn't look great now on the inside, but that's not what you're gonna see. What I'm gonna do is wipe the liquid glue off those edges so I can trim the top and bottom to be flush, and that should fix the problem. Ugh, mucky glue everywhere. Mucky glue. I don't like the stickiness. All right. Delightful. I can't believe I overlooked, actually I can. This is, again, this is what allergy brain does to you. Oh, it's not even an exact 1/4 of an inch. I hate it. Okay, new plan. Gonna put the glue on this side. And at this point, given what we've been dealing with, I am just gonna use the liquid glue. After going on about paper and whatnot, it just, yeah, feels like the right thing. I'm going to affix it and then trim, because if I try to measure it, I won't get it quite right. I know, I know myself well enough. So we're not gonna put me in a position to do that to myself. What we know more than anything is that all of this, oh, not entirely true, most of this is getting covered, except for the little bit where there's lace. Ugh. Oh my gosh. I'm having a day, guys. It's gonna be all right. Okay, there. Again, it is helpful to know that we all make mistakes and we still make cool stuff in spite of that. This is still going to be pretty when I'm done. Okay. Ugh. I'm going to line it up at the bottom left corner because that is the easiest for me. I'm going to flip it over and continue lining it up here. I do see just the tiniest bit of white edge, but I can ink that or cover it and it'll be fine. I have lots of bits of dried glue on my mat here. That's why I'm rubbing it weirdly. Okay, that is on. I'm just trying to rub and make sure everything is covered and in contact. Put that back there. Try to clean up more of this errant glue so I'm not fighting with it while I'm trying to work. And I mean, look how pretty. You would never know of the ordeal I just went through. And we're going to repeat that, the good part of that process on this side. Yay. And Sassy is here. Is stuff in your way, Missy? I'm so sorry. I was moving things around so I could sew. She is likely going to try and interrupt me at some point. Although if I get really lucky, she will just decide that all of my decoration and ephemera is a cozy enough place to chill out, at least long enough for me to get this glue. I did it again on the back. I put the glue all the way up to the edge. It's just like a natural, instinctual thing, right? Like, okay. Don't need it all the way up to the edge. La, 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 la. Gonna be okay. Okay. Cap my glue. Line it up on the inside bottom corner. Enough. And then flip to finalize. And I smooshed it over just a smidge. Is that a good place to hang out, Missy? She's getting good and cozy. We're gonna have to pause this video in a minute because I won't be able to do anything while she's lying on all my stuff, and that is fine. So, I have a journal. I need to cut the little bit of overhang off from this cover, do some inking again on any areas where I want to kind of like touch stuff up or cover stuff up. Inking really does cover a multitude of sins and mistakes. It really does. And yeah. So I'm gonna do that while the video is paused because I have a cat on all of my supplies and I could make her get up. I think some of this is actually from my cloth being a little mucky at this point. So I can clean this off to my liking and let things dry a little and whatnot, and we'll just have to come back later to do any decoration that I want to do as part of this video because, yeah, I don't like to move my cats off stuff when they want to be near me. I really need to be, I really need to want to get to what they're on. So, but there it is. We have this like lovely little tie back here. I will probably cut this a little shorter, but I always like to start with it a little too long, then end up getting it a little bit too short. So we'll do that, and I will return when I return, and we'll take it away from there. All right, I'm back, and I'm gonna wrap this up because the video went longer than I realized. So I'll probably go back and try to edit out some of the more repetitive bits. But it's good that I paused when I did because my phone was almost out of juice, and that is what I use to record these videos when I'm at the journal desk. So the last thing I want to show you pertains specifically to construction, and then I may come back later and do some decorating and stuff, but I did want to show you this. This is not something I necessarily included in the class that I'm teaching on this, but it is possible to add some little signatures in here in the hinge between two of the pages. I am going to attempt to demonstrate it very quickly, although if you want more instruction, there are copious other videos on YouTube and elsewhere that will show this in more detail than I will. I'm just doing a 3-hole pamphlet stitch. So I have 3 pages here that I cut down to fit. They're the same height as those little hinges. And I've poked 3 holes through the signature and the hinge. And I'm just gonna take my little needle here and accidentally go through. This is very fiddly because I've got those ties on already. All right, pull it through. You're gonna pull almost all the way through. You do wanna leave yourself a tail, so I'm just gonna tuck it in under this paper clip. There we go. And then gonna come in through a top hole. Did not poke that one as evenly as I would like. That happens. Happens to the best of us. And then I'm gonna go down to the bottom hole, so I'm gonna skip the middle. Put it back through. And again, I'll go ahead and pull that. Sorry. It's hard to demonstrate because this thing is so flippy floppy, flappy, etc. But that's okay. And then back in through that first middle hole. And that's actually one of the better, that's actually better than I've done with some of the others because this is the 4th one of these that I've sewn. And then you bring the remaining thread in on the other side so that you can easily knot. I'm using waxed linen thread, and so a single knot is really going to do enough. If you use certain other types of thread like embroidery floss or something like that, you may want to secure it with additional knots, but the wax really helps hold that knot in place. So a single knot should really do the trick here. And so this is our journal. Pockets back here, so many pockets, so much fun. Cover here, and then several pages with these extra little writing pages in them. And I left 2 of them open, so there there we go. And then once again, just go ahead and tie that to secure those pockets. And there she is. Like I said, I started playing around with a little bit of decoration while I was waiting for the phone to charge and stuff. So I may come back and show a couple of different things that I'm gonna do just to add additional embellishments and pockets and other fun things. But now at least I have shown how that is made, so that anyone who wants to repeat the instruction from the class, or any of my other YouTube followers just want to see what I did, you can. And I just, once again, I am so happy with these papers. They're so pretty. Anyway, I should have said this earlier, but if you stuck it through all the way to the end, thank you very much for keeping me company. If you enjoyed this or learned anything from it, I'd really appreciate you giving the video a thumbs up and subscribing. And if you hit that bell, you'll get notified every time I release a new video, which hopefully will be a little bit more often now that I've got my booth set up. Thank you so much. Bye.